Welcome back to the first team. I'm Joe DeLeone, joined by Ryan Roberts. We're doing yet another scouting report episode. We've got two quality tight ends in the 2024 NFL draft class. I think we're going to have some differing opinions, wide range of projection for these two guys. It's actually an interesting pairing that we're doing today. That being CJ, is it? You said it was Dippe?
I think it's
CJ Dippe.
I think it's Dippe.
Dippe?
Yep.
Dippe. He has a very easily spelled name, but a very strange. There's so many different ways you could pronounce it, and as we know in the show, I'm terrible at pronouncing names. CJ Dippe from Alabama, previously the Maryland tight end. He transferred this offseason, and then we're also going to be going over Benjamin Urasek, another talented Stanford guy. Ryan, let's start off with Dippe from Alabama, 6'5", 260 pounds. You always got a lot of details. This guy came from Maryland, where he had moderate production, and then now he is going to be joining a team that I don't know if they really use tight ends that well in their offense, but we've got a new scheme. We've got Tommy Rees running things. What do you got for background on this guy?
Well, I think that's a great note to start out with, is that tight end will probably be something that's utilized a little bit more in the Alabama offense. Because to your point, Joe, I believe Cameron Latu almost had identical production to what CJ Dippe had last year. Obviously, Dippe at Maryland and Latu at Alabama. So I expect with the Tommy Rees layer for the tight end to be utilized a little bit more in Alabama's offense. This is a young man he was a Scranton, PA guy, Lakeland High School originally. Played quarterback, tight end, and was also an all-state discus thrower, 171 feet in discus, which is a excellent toss, absolutely excellent toss. This kid could have thrown discus on certain levels. He's not like a elite discus thrower on the like high Division I level, but he's still a very, very good discus thrower. Moderate production, to your point. Obviously took a big step forward in 2022. Only had 3 receptions in 2021 as a freshman, as a redshirt freshman, I believe, or actually maybe just a true freshman. Second year, 30 receptions for over 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. Very interesting player, like you said, 6'5", 257, listed on Alabama's site, listed 260 at Maryland. So he is a bigger tight end, a young man that is a very interesting player, hit the portal this offseason, and to say that he was well wanted would be a very vast understatement. Obviously, he ends up in Alabama. He had a lot of different offers, a lot of suitors, a lot of teams that wanted him. Very interesting football player. After not wasn't a very heavily recruited kid as far as like massive offers. So he gets a second chance, and there we are, man. CJ Dippe is a guy that a lot of people really like, and Alabama obviously liked a lot.
So Dippe, I kind of feel like his market was based on there just being a lack of overall tight end talent in the portal. Look, I think that he's a fine football player.
Okay.
Already off to a rough start here. He's a fine football player.
Yes.
I don't think he's a great athlete. I don't think he's somebody who is very explosive. I don't think he is a super dangerous receiver for that reason. I also didn't see someone who creates a lot of separation in his routes. And then obviously he's not great linearly. I also had a little bit of an issue watching him block because I don't think that he gives a lot of drive off the ball, despite being listed at 260 pounds, and then does not play with the greatest angles. Not saying he can't be a good tight end, not saying he can't be productive, but my take here with Dippe is I know I'm
you
crapping
don't like
on him
at all. Like him at all.
I think that he is draftable because he's big.
Can I recap this real quick? Can I recap what you just said? You just said,
all right, I think he stinks. All right. I was trying to be nice. I don't think he's very good.
You just said.
I don't think he's very good.
You just said, I don't think he's athletic. I don't think he's straight line fast. And I don't think he can block. That's literally what you just said. That's what you just said.
Okay, let me ask you this before we kind of like give like an actual thought on like a projection on him.
Yes.
Do you disagree with any of those levels? Any of those things that I just brought up?
I disagree with athleticism a little bit. I think he's a better athlete than you do. I don't think he's an elite athlete. Like that's not what I'm saying, but I think he's
very average.
I think he's a good athlete for his size. He's 257 to 260 pounds. If you put on the Ohio State game, I think it was like the first play of the game, he ran like a little slide route and he was out in the open, Joe, and he completely hurdled a dude in the open field. Like I think he's a little bit better of an athlete than what you're giving him credit for, but I will say he's a very underwhelming blocker right now. because I think that he's a kid that was a quarterback mostly in high school, and I think that he's still developing into his frame a little bit. I also think that this is a young man that I wrote down in my notes. I was like, I think that he isn't fully. I don't think he fully understands of how big he is at times. I think that he plays like
Yes.
he plays the tight end position like he's a wide receiver, and
Yeah.
so
But he's not built to play it like a
No, he's
wide
not.
receiver. That's the problem.
He's not. No, because he's 257 and 260 pounds. So I'm interested to see how he develops at Alabama this year. I would say this as far as this kid's not going to be near the top of my tight end board right now. He's not going to be. I think there's some intrigue. I think there's some parts of his game that I really like, but I don't think that we see him too differently in the sense that I don't think this is a top shelf NFL draft prospect right now. I think this is a kid that has good size, good length. I think he has some athletic upside. I think he has good catch radius, and I think he's a better athlete than you think he's an athlete. But he's not a blocker. He's very inconsistent, and he's a young man that needs to take a massive step forward. Alabama clearly valued him a lot, so we'll see if they utilize him in the offense a ton. But I agree with you to a lot of the extent, just differing a little bit on some parts of the evaluation. That's it.
Okay. The funniest part, and one of my favorite parts about doing the show is we always agree, but we always present it differently. I'm always a lot more negative than you are, and I think that
it's funny.
It helps because it provides good context that way. I will say that, and I bet that our projection where we think this guy goes is identical. I'm willing to bet.
What's funny is that I feel like I have said stuff to you before about being like overly negative, and you were being super nice in your evaluation, even though you basically said the guy stinks. You just didn't want to say the guy stinks.
Look, I think that he's draftable because he has the size, he has the frame, and I think that you can look at, you just highlighted, you can look at some of those traits and say like, okay, big catch radius, he's got the weight behind him, but he carries it well. Yeah. This is somebody who might be able to be an impactful second tight end on a roster. That's his ceiling for me. I don't really see a way that he secures his way into being a number one option, a number one receiving option in a team's offense in the NFL. Being a second tight end, he's a fifth at the most round pick, but I think more realistically, 6th, 7th round pick. I gave him a top 200 grid.
I gave him a top 250, so I'm actually a little bit lower than you somehow. Somehow we got here, and I'm a little bit lower. I don't know how that happens. I think he's a borderline draftable player right now, but the thing I think we need to remember about CJ Dippe is that CJ Dippe is only going to be a true junior this year, and he has a couple years of eligibility left. There's development that could be had, but yes, today in a vacuum, he is a borderline draftable football player because he does bring some things to the table. But even if I'm projecting him to be a second tight end, Joe, the bad part is that second tight ends, usually, unless your first tight end is a dynamo blocker, they need to be a blocking expert, a guy that can really handle the run game. CJ Dippe is not that guy right now. He's not. So it's a muddled evaluation right now. I think there's upside, but there is a lot that needs to happen, a lot of development that needs to happen for CJ.
Well, so that's where I think things are a little bit favorable, is because he steps into an Alabama onto an Alabama roster that the previous offensive coordinators and just in the past tight ends didn't really pan out as elite blockers, elite receivers. They were just steady. And I think now with Tommy Rees, I'm not saying that Tommy Rees is going to turn him into Michael Mayer. Right. It's not going to happen.
Right.
But one of the biggest folds in Notre Dame's offense was getting Michael Mayer the football. Yeah. They obviously did that because Michael Mayer was the best receiver that they had by a long stride. But I mean, Dippe's fine, and they might find wrinkles and ways to get him the football.
And there's a lot of shade that you could throw at Tommy Rees. I'm not the biggest Tommy Rees guy of all time. I never have been. But
shocking.
But the one thing I will say about Tommy Rees is that he does understand how to utilize tight ends in an offense. So he does have that background. I mean, we can't just say Michael Mayer is so good and that was the only reason that he was productive. It's like, no, Tommy Rees put him in some pretty good positions to be productive as well. So I think Tommy will be fine in that regard. I think Alabama's going to be able to run the football, and I think they're going to be able to utilize the tight ends. I just have questions of like what the absolute upside is of the offense. But that's another conversation for another day and a different show, probably entirely.
I just want to tell you folks about an exciting new partnership that we have with this channel with Underdog Fantasy. Ever since I joined, I've been having so much fun. There are so many different exciting games that make watching games during the offseason more exciting. I'm not the biggest basketball fan, but it has made it way more entertaining since I found Underdog Fantasy. And my favorite game to play so far, which I think you should try out, is Pick'em. It is so easy to play. Just pick higher or lower on your favorite player's stats, and you can win up to 20 times your money in a single night. Underdog keeps it simple with their easy-to-use website and mobile apps. Pick between 2 and 5 players to fill out your Pick'em slip, get every pick right, and take home some cold hard cash. Use code HACK, 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 like the name of this channel. Use code HACK to get your first deposit doubled up to $100 by Underdog. Go sign up. You won't regret it. You're going to have a blast. Check out Underdog Fantasy. I also want to tell you folks about our other recurring sponsor that we have on this channel, that being BetOnline, betonline.ag, which has all the updated odds, news, and anything for sports betting. It's my go-to source for when I want to be betting specifically on games. I love betting on college basketball or the NBA, especially, again, during the offseason. Always looking for more fun ways to be focused in on some of these other sports. It's betonline.ag and use promo code BELIEVE50. It's promo code BELIEVE50 to get 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.